He protected the enemy's child. Now the alien mother wants him as her own, making his name known. The sound of explosions echoed across the barren landscape of Kepler 4 to be as Marine Sergeant Marcus. Chen pressed his back against a broken wall. His communication device crackled with static, then went silent. The last message he heard was his squad leader calling for retreat. That was 20 minutes ago. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his weapon. 3 energy cells left. Not much, but it would have to do. The war between humans and the Zephyrians had been going on for 3 years now, and every battle felt like it might be the last one he would see. He looked around the ruined settlement. The buildings were strange, made from some kind of smooth blue stone that the Zephyrians seemed to love. Most of them were now broken shells, victims of the bombing runs that had happened earlier that day. Marcus tried not to think about who might have been living here before the war came. A sound made him freeze. It was not the noise of weapons or aircraft. It was something else. Something that made his heart skip a beat. It was crying. Marcus listened carefully. The sound was coming from a collapsed building about 50 meters away. It was high-pitched and desperate, the kind of sound that any parent would recognize instantly. A child was trapped under there. Marcus looked at his scanner. No human life signs in the area. His training told him to ignore it and find his way back to base. The enemy was the enemy, no matter how old they were. That was what the officers said during briefings. But the crying continued. Marcus had seen enough to know what fear sounded like. This was pure terror. A small being calling for help that might never come. He made his decision. Moving carefully from cover to cover, Marcus approached the collapsed building. The crying grew louder. Through a gap in the rubble, he could see movement. Something small and pale was trapped under a fallen beam. Marcus set down his weapon and began moving stones. Each piece of debris he lifted sent dust into the air. The crying stopped for a moment, then started again, softer now, more hopeful. "Hey there," Marcus whispered, not sure if the child could understand him. "I'm going to get you out of there." As he worked, Marcus got his first clear look at what he was saving. The child was definitely Zephyrian. Their skin had the pale blue tint that all their people shared, and their large golden eyes were filled with tears. They looked to be about 4 or 5 years old in human terms. The beam that had trapped the child was heavy. Marcus had to use all his strength to lift it enough for the small being to crawl out. When they did, he saw that their left leg was injured. Not broken, but badly bruised. The child looked up at Marcus with those huge golden eyes. They said something in their musical language that he could not understand, but their meaning was clear enough. "Thank you." Marcus reached into his pack and pulled out his medical kit. He had trained in basic first aid, and injuries were injuries no matter what species they belonged to. He cleaned the child's wounds and wrapped their leg with bandages. "There you go," he said softly. "That should help." The child watched his every move with curious eyes. When Marcus offered them some water from his canteen, they drank gratefully. When he shared a nutrition bar, they ate it slowly, as if they had not had food in a long time. Marcus realized he had a problem. He could not just leave the child here. They were injured and alone. But he also could not take them with him. His own people would never understand, and if the Zephyrians found him with one of their children, the decision was taken away from him. The sound of aircraft engines filled the air. Marcus looked up to see 3 Zephyrian patrol ships circling overhead. Their sensors had probably detected his life signs. Marcus grabbed his weapon and looked for cover. But the child did something unexpected. They grabbed his arm with their small hands and shook their head in broken, heavily accented English. They said one word, "No." The patrol ships landed in a triangle formation around the ruined building. Zephyrian soldiers emerged, their tall forms moving with deadly grace. They carried energy weapons that could cut through armor like paper. Marcus had 2 choices. He could try to fight his way out, probably getting both himself and the child hurt in the process. Or he could do something that went against every bit of military training he had ever received. He chose to trust. Marcus set down his weapon and stepped out into the open. He raised his hands above his head, but kept his body between the soldiers and the child. The Zephyrians immediately pointed their weapons at him, shouting commands in their own language. The child limped out from behind Marcus. They said something quickly to the soldiers, pointing at Marcus and then at their bandaged leg. One of the soldiers, who seemed to be their leader, tilted their head in confusion. More words were exchanged. The child seemed to be arguing with the soldiers. They grabbed Marcus's hand and held it tightly. Their golden eyes fierce with determination. The patrol leader spoke into a communication device. After a few minutes, they received a response. The leader looked at Marcus for a long moment, then made a gesture to the other soldiers. Instead of firing their weapons, they stepped forward and placed restraints on Marcus's wrists. But they did it carefully, almost gently. The child never let go of his hand. As they led him to one of the patrol ships, Marcus wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had saved an enemy child, and now he was their prisoner. By all rights, he should be dead already. But something in the way the soldiers treated him suggested that things were not going to be that simple. The child's words had changed something. Marcus did not know what he had started, but he knew there was no going back now. The patrol ship lifted off, carrying Marcus toward an uncertain future. Through the window, he could see the child sitting across from him, still holding his hand. Despite everything, the small being smiled at him. Marcus smiled back. Whatever happened next, he knew he had made the right choice. Some things were more important than war. Some things were worth risking everything for. The child was one of those things. As the ship flew toward the main Zephyrian fleet, Marcus wondered if he would ever see home again. But looking at the grateful eyes of the small being beside him, he realized that maybe home was not a place. Maybe it was about protecting those who needed protection. No matter who they were or where they came from, the war would continue. But, for now, in this moment, Marcus had found something worth fighting for that had nothing to do with enemies or battles. He had found hope. The Zephyrian command ship was massive. Marcus had only seen pictures of their vessels before, but being inside one was completely different. The walls seemed to glow with a soft blue light, and everything curved in ways that human engineering never attempted. It was beautiful and alien at the same time. The child, who still held his hand, chattered excitedly to the guards in their musical language. Marcus caught a few words that sounded familiar from intelligence briefings, but he could not understand most of what was being said. They walked through long corridors filled with Zephyrian crew members. Many stopped to stare at Marcus. Some looked angry, others seemed curious. A few appeared shocked to see a human walking freely among them, especially one being led by a child. Finally, they reached a large door that opened silently. The room beyond was clearly important. The ceiling was high, and holographic displays showed star maps and battle formations. At the center of it all stood a tall Zephyrian female. She was different from the others Marcus had seen. Her skin had a deeper blue tint, and golden markings covered her arms and neck. She wore what looked like military armor, but it was decorated with symbols that suggested high rank. Her golden eyes were the same color as the child's, but they held a sadness that made Marcus's heart ache. When she saw the child, everything changed. The proud military commander disappeared. In her place stood a mother who had thought her child was dead. She dropped to her knees and gathered the small being into her arms, speaking rapidly in their language. Tears flowed down her face as she held the child close. The child spoke excitedly, pointing at Marcus and gesturing to their bandaged leg. The female looked up at Marcus with an expression he could not read. "You," she said in heavily accented English, "are the human who did this?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I found them trapped under some rubble. They were hurt, so I helped them." The female stood slowly, never taking her eyes off Marcus. "I am Matriarch Velinara of the Third Fleet. This is my daughter, Lyrale. I was told she died when your people bombed the settlement." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Ma'am, I didn't know about any bombing. I was separated from my unit during the battle. I just heard crying and went to help." Velinara studied his face carefully. "You expect me to believe that a human soldier risked his life to save a Zephyrian child for no reason. I expect you to believe the truth." Marcus replied. She was scared and hurt. She needed help. That's all I cared about. Lyrale said something to her mother in their language. Villanara's expression softened slightly as she listened. My daughter says you gave her food and water, that you used your own medical supplies to treat her wounds. Is this true? Yes, ma'am. She also says you spoke to her gently, even though she could not understand your words, that you made her feel safe. Marcus looked down at Lyrale, who smiled up at him. I just tried to keep her calm. She was very brave. Villanara was quiet for a long moment. Other Zephyrian officers had gathered around them, watching the conversation with intense interest. Marcus could feel their eyes on him, but he kept his attention on the matriarch and our culture. Villanara finally said, there is an old law. One who saves a child's life becomes part of that child's family. It is a bond that cannot be broken. Marcus did not know what to say to that, but you are human. She continued, you are our enemy. My military code says I should execute you immediately. I understand, Marcus said quietly. Do you? Villanara stepped closer to him. Do you understand that by saving my daughter, you have created an impossible situation? I cannot follow my duty as a military commander and my duty as a mother at the same time. One of them must be broken. Lyrale seemed to sense the tension in the room. She moved to stand between Marcus and her mother, speaking rapidly in their language. Her small voice was filled with determination. Villanara listened to her daughter, then looked at Marcus again. She says you are her friend, that you protected her when no one else could. She asked me not to hurt you, ma'am. I don't want to cause problems between you and your people. If you need to do what military law says, I understand. Just please make sure Lyrale knows that helping her was the right thing to do. The other officers began speaking among themselves in their language. The conversation grew heated, with some gesturing angrily at Marcus. But Villanara raised her hand for silence. There is one possibility, she said slowly, an ancient tradition that has not been used in many years, the trial of hearts. It would determine if you are truly worthy of the bond my daughter speaks of. What does that mean? Marcus asked. It means you would be tested. 3 challenges to prove your character, your courage, and your wisdom. If you pass, you would be accepted as family. If you fail, she did not finish the sentence. And if I don't take the trial, then I must follow military law. Marcus looked down at Lyrale. The child was watching him with those large golden eyes, full of trust and hope. She had already been through so much. He could not let her down now. I'll do it, he said. Villanara nodded slowly. The trial will begin tomorrow. Tonight, you will be our guest. Lyrale will show you to quarters where you can rest, as they prepared. To leave, Villanara called out to Marcus. Human, what is your name? Marcus Chen, ma'am, Sergeant. Human Colonial Marines, Marcus Chen, she repeated, as if testing how the words sounded. I want you to know something. The settlement where you found my daughter was not destroyed by human bombs. Marcus stopped walking. What do you mean? Our intelligence reports show it was destroyed by weapons that neither humans nor Zephyrians use. Someone else wanted us to think your people had done it. Someone who benefits from our war continuing. The implications of her words hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're saying someone set this up. I am saying there are forces at work that neither of our peoples fully understand. Forces that profit from our conflict. Villanara's expression grew grim. Perhaps that is why fate brought you to my daughter. Perhaps it is time for our peoples to start asking the right questions. As Marcus followed Lyrale through the ship's corridors, his mind raced. He had come here as a prisoner, expecting to die. Instead, he found himself in the middle of something much larger than a simple rescue. Tomorrow he would face trials that could cost him his life. But tonight, he had a chance to rest and think about what Villanara had told him. Someone was playing both sides of this war, and somehow, a scared little girl had become the key to uncovering the truth. Marcus smiled as Lyrale chattered happily beside him, pointing out different parts of the ship. Whatever tomorrow brought, he was glad he had made the choice to help her. Some decisions were bigger than the person making them. This was one of those decisions. Marcus woke to the soft sound of chimes. The room Lyrale had shown him was comfortable, with a bed that adjusted to his body and walls that displayed peaceful scenes from various worlds. He had slept better than he had in months, despite knowing what awaited him. A gentle knock at the door made him sit up. Lyrale entered, carrying what looked like breakfast on a floating tray. She smiled brightly at him and said something in her language. "Good morning to you too," Marcus replied, returning her smile. She had learned a few more English words overnight. "Eat," she said carefully, pointing to the food. Strong for trial. The meal was unlike anything Marcus had ever tasted. The flavors were subtle and complex, nothing like the military rations he was used to. Lyrale watched him eat, occasionally correcting his use of the strange eating utensils. With giggles, after breakfast, Velenar arrived with several other officers. She wore ceremonial robes instead of her military uniform, and her expression was formal but not unkind. "It is time." "Marcus Chen," she said. "Are you ready?" Marcus stood up, "As ready as I can be. Before we begin, you should understand what you are facing. The Trial of Hearts has 3 parts. Each one tests a different aspect of your character. Many who attempt it do not survive. What happens if I don't make it?" Velenara's expression softened slightly. "Then you will have died with honor, and your sacrifice will be remembered. But more importantly, Lyrale will know that you tried to prove yourself worthy of being her family." Marcus knelt down to Lyrale's level. "Hey there, little one. I'm going to go take this test now. Whatever happens, remember that helping you was the best thing I've ever done." Lyrale hugged him tightly. In her careful English, she whispered, "Come back, Marcus brother." The first trial took place in a large chamber filled with holographic projectors. As Marcus entered, the room transformed around him. Suddenly he was standing on a human battlefield, watching his friends and fellow soldiers fall around him. "The trial of courage," Velenara's voice echoed through the chamber. "You must walk through your fears and reach the center of the maze. But beware, what you see may break your mind." The holographic battlefield was perfect in every detail. Marcus could smell the smoke, hear the screams, feel the ground shake under his feet. These were his memories, pulled from his mind and made real around him. He began walking forward. Each step brought new horrors. He saw the face of every friend he had lost, every enemy he had been forced to fight. The images seemed designed to fill him with rage and hatred. But something unexpected happened. Instead of anger, Marcus felt sadness, deep, overwhelming sadness for all the lives that had been lost. On both sides, human and Zephyrian alike, all of them someone's children, someone's family. "Why do you not hate them?" a voice asked from nowhere. "Because hate is what started all this," Marcus replied, continuing to walk. "Hate is what keeps it going. I can't save the people who are already gone, but maybe I can help prevent more from dying." The battlefield began to fade. In its place, Marcus saw moments of kindness he had witnessed during the war. A Zephyrian medic treating wounded humans, human soldiers sharing food with captured enemies, small acts of compassion in the middle of terrible conflict. He reached the center of the maze, where a simple door waited. As he opened it, the holographic chamber returned to normal. Velenara and the other observers were watching him with expressions of surprise. "Interesting," one of the officers murmured. "Most humans who face that trial emerge filled with rage. The second trial awaits," Velenara announced. The next chamber contained what looked like a library, but instead of books, there were glowing crystals arranged on shelves. Each crystal contained a puzzle or question. "The trial of wisdom," Velenara explained. "You must solve 3 ancient riddles that have challenged our people for generations. Answer correctly, and you pass. Answer incorrectly." She did not need to finish. Marcus approached the first crystal. As he touched it, words appeared in the air, written in both Zephyrian script and English. "What is stronger than steel but softer than silk? What can break mountains but cannot harm a flower?" Marcus thought carefully. This was not just about finding the right answer. It was about understanding how the Zephyrians thought. After several minutes, he spoke. "Water. It can wear down the hardest stone over time, but it also nourishes the gentlest plant. The crystal glowed brighter, and Marcus felt a sense of approval from the watching officers. The second riddle was more complex. A warrior has two enemies approaching from opposite directions. He has only one weapon. How does he defeat both without moving from where he stands? This one took longer. Marcus paced around the crystal, thinking about Zephyrian military philosophy. From what he had observed, finally, inspiration struck. He doesn't fight them. He finds a way to make them see that their real enemy is not him, but whatever force put them in conflict in the first place. True victory comes from turning enemies into allies. The second crystal began to glow. The third riddle was the hardest of all. What sacrifice is not a loss? What gift becomes greater when given away? Marcus stared at the words for a long time. He thought about Lyrale, about Villanara, about all the people on both sides who were dying in a war that someone else was profiting from. Then he smiled. Love. When you love someone, you gain more than you give up. And when you share love with others, it doesn't get smaller, it grows. All three crystals blazed with light. Several of the Zephyrian officers exchanged amazed glances. No one has ever solved all three riddles on their first attempt, Villanara said quietly. But the hardest trial was still to come. The final chamber was smaller than the others. In the center stood a control panel with two buttons. Above it, two holographic screens showed different scenes. The trial of sacrifice, Villanara announced, her voice heavy with emotion. You must choose. Save a group of human soldiers who are under attack, or save a group of Zephyrian civilians who are trapped in a burning building. You can only save one group. Choose. Marcus looked at the screens. On one side, he could see human Marines, his own people, fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. On the other side, Zephyrian families huddled in terror as flames closed in around them. The watching officers waited silently. This was the test that broke most candidates. Being forced to choose between saving your own people or your former enemies was an impossible decision. But Marcus had learned something during his time with Lyrale and Villanara. Sometimes the right answer was not one of the choices presented. Instead of pressing either button, Marcus began examining the control panel itself. There had to be another way. There was always another way if you looked hard enough. After several tense minutes, he found what he was looking for. A third option, hidden beneath the main controls. It would require him to overload the system, probably destroying the simulation equipment and putting himself at risk. Marcus activated it anyway. Both screens showed the same result. The humans and Zephyrians found themselves working together, the soldiers helping to rescue the civilians, while the civilians shared their knowledge of the area. To help the soldiers escape, Marcus collapsed as energy feedback from the overloaded system hit him, but he was smiling. Impossible, one of the officers whispered. Villanara knelt beside Marcus as medical teams rushed in. Why? She asked. Why risk everything for both groups? Because, Marcus said weakly, the real enemy isn't humans or Zephyrians. It's whoever benefits from making us fight each other. And the only way to beat that enemy is if we stop seeing each other as enemies. As consciousness faded, Marcus heard Villanara speaking to the other officers. The last thing he remembered was her saying, prepare for the adoption ceremony. He has passed all three trials. When he woke up, Lyrale was holding his hand again, and he could see acceptance in the eyes of everyone around him. The adoption ceremony was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The main hall of the Zephyrian command ship was filled with hundreds of crew members, all watching as ancient traditions unfolded before their eyes. Marcus knelt in the center of the room while Villanara spoke in the flowing Zephyrian language. Her words echoed through the chamber, formal and powerful. Lyrale stood beside him, translating in whispers. She says you have proven your heart is true. Lyrale explained. She says you are now family. Villanara approached Marcus with a small device that looked like a pen made of light. She began drawing patterns on his arms, and where the light touched, his skin changed. Soft blue markings appeared, glowing gently before settling into permanent tattoos. These marks show everyone that you belong to our family, Velinara said in English. You are now Marcus of House Velinara, brother. To Lyrale, son to me. The ceremony was being broadcast across both human and Zephyrian space. Marcus learned this when Velinara showed him the reactions on the communication networks. Later that evening, your people are not happy, she said, pointing to angry messages from human military command. Many call you a traitor. Marcus looked at the messages. Some were indeed angry, calling him names he had heard before. But others were different. Soldiers asking questions about why he had made his choice. Families wondering if there might be another way to end the war. What about your people? Marcus asked. Mixed reactions as well. Some say I have dishonored our fleet by adopting a human. Others are curious about what you might teach us. Velinara paused. But there are also those who see opportunity in what has happened over the following days. Marcus began learning about Zephyrian culture from the inside. He ate meals with Velinara's officers, learned basic words in their language, and helped Lyrale with her studies. It was strange but wonderful to be part of a family again. During one of these meals, Commander Zixtal, Velinara's second in command, asked Marcus a direct question. You have seen both sides of this war now. What do you think is really happening? Marcus had been wondering about that himself. I think someone is playing both our peoples against each other. The question is who and why. Velinara sat down, her eating utensil. We have suspected this for some time. Too many of our battles have ended in ways that benefit neither side. Resources are wasted, lives are lost, but the war continues. What kind of evidence do you have? Marcus asked. Zixtal activated a holographic display. Weapon signatures that match neither human nor Zephyrian technology, communication intercepts. That suggests outside involvement, supply chains that make no sense for either military. Marcus studied the data. His human military training helped him see patterns that the Zephyrians might have missed. This looks like the work of arms dealers. Someone is selling weapons to both sides and making sure the war never ends. The hegemony, Velinara said quietly. We have long suspected them, but could never prove it. Marcus had heard of the hegemony during intelligence briefings. They were a loose alliance of traitors and mercenaries who operated in the space between human and Zephyrian territories. They claimed to be neutral, but they always seemed to profit from conflict if we could prove they were involved. Marcus said, it might change everything. Exactly. But we would need someone both sides could trust to investigate. Someone who could move between human and Zephyrian space without being seen as a spy. Marcus realized what she was suggesting. You want me to be that person. I want us to work together. Your unique position gives us an opportunity we have never had before. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Zixtal received an urgent message on his communication device. Matriarch, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting ships approaching our position. They do not match any known human or Zephyrian designs. Everyone rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, Marcus could see sleek black ships unlike anything he had ever seen. They moved with predatory grace, surrounding the Zephyrian fleet, hegemony attack vessels. Velinara confirmed grimly. It seems our conversation was overheard. The lead enemy ship sent a communication signal. The face that appeared on screen was humanoid, but clearly not human or Zephyrian. Their skin was gray, their eyes were solid black, and their voice carried no emotion. Matriarch Velinara, we know you have adopted a human into your family. This action threatens the profitable balance we have worked to maintain. Surrender the human to us, and we will allow your fleet to withdraw. Never, Velinara replied firmly. Then you have chosen to protect someone who will destroy the natural order of things. We cannot allow that. The communication ended, and the hegemony ships began moving into attack formation. They are not just after me, Marcus realized. They are afraid of what it means that humans and Zephyrians are working together. Alert all ships. Velinara commanded, prepare for battle. But the battle did not go as anyone expected. The hegemony ships used weapons that seemed to disrupt both human and Zephyrian technology. Systems failed, engines stopped working, and weapons would not fire properly. They have been studying our technology for years, Zixel reported. They know exactly how to counter our defenses. Marcus watched the tactical display as the Zephyrian fleet struggled against the attack. An idea began forming in his mind. What if we do something they are not expecting? He suggested. What if we fight like humans and Zephyrians working together instead of just Zephyrians? What do you mean? Velinara asked. Human tactics are different from yours. If we combine them with Zephyrian technology, we might create something the hegemony has never seen before. It was a desperate plan, but it was their only chance. Marcus began working with the Zephyrian tactical officers, showing them human strategies while learning how to adapt them to Zephyrian ships. The results were immediate. The combined approach confused the hegemony attackers, who had prepared for standard Zephyrian responses. But now the defenders were using unpredictable human creativity, enhanced by superior Zephyrian technology. During the battle, something even more unexpected happened. Lyrale, who had been watching from the bridge, suddenly stood up. Ships coming, she announced, pointing at the sensor display. New contexts were appearing on the screen. Human ships, arriving to investigate the battle. For a moment, everyone feared the situation was about to get much worse. But then Marcus heard a familiar voice on the communication channel. This is Colonel Sarah Martinez. Of the human colonial fleet, we receive reports of unknown ships attacking this area. Zephyrian vessels, do you require assistance? Marcus looked at Velinara, who nodded. This is Marcus Chen, he said into the communicator. I know this sounds crazy, but we are under attack by forces that have been manipulating both our peoples. We could use your help. There was a long pause. Then Colonel Martinez spoke again. Marcus Chen, you are listed as missing in action, but if you say you need help, then you have it. All human ships, target the black vessels, protect the Zephyrian fleet. What followed was the first time in 3 years that human and Zephyrian ships fought side by side. The hegemony forces, caught completely off guard by this cooperation, began to retreat. But their leaders sent one final message before disappearing. This changes nothing. We will return, and next time we will be ready for your alliance. As the immediate threat ended, Marcus found himself standing between two fleets that had been enemies. Just hours before, now they were working together, sharing information and treating each other's wounded. Lyrale tugged on his sleeve. Marcus' brother did good thing, she said proudly. He smiled down at her. We all did good things today, but this is just the beginning. Looking out at the mixed fleet of human and Zephyrian ships, Marcus knew that everything had changed. The real enemy had revealed itself, and now both peoples knew they had been manipulated. The war was not over yet, but for the first time, there was hope that it might end the right way. 3 months after the first joint battle, Marcus stood on the bridge of a new kind of ship. It was built using both human and Zephyrian technology, with crews from both species working side by side. The ship's name was written in both languages. Unity's Hope. The cooperation between the two former enemies had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Joint research stations were being built. Trade agreements were being discussed. Most importantly, a combined investigation team was tracking down hegemony operations throughout the galaxy. Marcus had become the official liaison between the two fleets, a role that everyone agreed he was uniquely qualified for. His name was spoken with respect in both human and Zephyrian space. Though not everyone was happy with the changes he had helped bring about, Marcus' brother, look at this, Lyrale, called out, now speaking much better English. At 7 years old, she was already learning to be a bridge between cultures just like him. She was pointing at a communication display showing news reports from both sides. Some praised the new alliance, while others criticized it. But the important thing was that people were talking instead of just fighting. Admiral Chen, Colonel Martinez said, approaching him with a smile. The promotion had been a surprise, but both human and Zephyrian command had agreed he needed rank that matched his responsibilities. Any word from our investigation teams? Marcus asked. Actually, yes, and it's big news. We found the main hegemony base. The base was hidden in an asteroid field at the edge of known space. It was massive, clearly built over many years. Intelligence. Reports showed it contained weapons factories, command centers, and evidence of the manipulation that had kept the war going. They have been planning this for decades, Velinara said as she reviewed the data. Creating conflicts, selling weapons, profiting from the deaths of our peoples. What's the plan? Marcus asked. Joint assault, human and Zephyrian forces working together. But it will not be easy. The base has defenses designed to counter both our technologies. Marcus studied the tactical displays. The hegemony had learned from their previous defeat and had prepared better defenses. But they had made one mistake. They were still thinking. Like the old enemies, not like the new alliance. We need to hit them with something they cannot predict, he said. Something that has never been tried before. The plan they developed was risky, but brilliant. Instead of attacking with separate human and Zephyrian forces, they would create mixed units. Human creativity would guide Zephyrian precision. Zephyrian honor would strengthen human determination. Lyrale, now trained in both human and Zephyrian communication systems, would coordinate between the different groups. It was dangerous for someone so young, but she had insisted on helping. This is my family's fight too, she had said with determination that reminded Marcus of her mother. The battle for the hegemony base began at dawn, ship time. The combined fleet approached in formations that confused the defenders completely. They had prepared for human tactics or Zephyrian tactics, but not for both at once, Marcus commanded. The lead assault group from Unity's Hope, as they broke through the outer defenses. He could see the surprise on enemy faces through the communication channels. How are they working together so well? One hegemony officer was heard asking. Because they are family now, Marcus replied over the open channel. The battle raged for hours. The hegemony forces were well equipped and determined. But they could not match the spirit of people fighting for something greater than themselves. During the most intense part of the fight, disaster struck. A hegemony weapon damaged Unity's Hope badly, and Marcus was thrown across the bridge by an explosion. When he tried to get up, he found he could not move his legs. Medical team to the bridge. Velinara shouted as she knelt beside him. The battle, Marcus said weakly. We have to finish it. The battle will continue, she assured him. You have taught us enough that we can fight as one people now. As medical teams worked on Marcus, he watched the displays showing the final assault on the hegemony base. Human and Zephyrian soldiers fought side by side, protecting each other, sharing resources. Combining their strengths, Lyrale coordinated the communications perfectly, switching between languages and making sure everyone understood each other. She had become the bridge her brother had started building. When the hegemony base finally fell, both fleets cheered together. They had found extensive records proving years of manipulation and war profiteering. The evidence would ensure that the galaxy knew the truth about who had really been responsible for the conflict. Marcus woke up in a medical bay that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Human and Zephyrian medical technology had been combined to treat his injuries. The doctors told him he would walk again, though it would take time. You did it, Velinara said when she came to visit. The war is officially over. Both governments have signed peace treaties. We all did it, Marcus corrected. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Lyrale bounded into the room with her usual energy. Marcus' brother, look what I brought you. She handed him a data pad showing news reports from across the galaxy. His name was being mentioned everywhere, not as a soldier or a warrior, but as Marcus the bridge builder and the human who changed everything. They are saying you are the reason the war ended, Lyrale said proudly. No, Marcus said, pulling her close for a hug. You are the reason the war ended. You trusted a stranger when you had every reason to be afraid. You taught your mother and me that families can be bigger than just one species. Over the following months, as Marcus recovered, the galaxy continued to change. Mixed colonies were being established. Joint exploration missions were being planned. Children from both species were learning each other's languages and cultures. Marcus eventually returned to active duty, but his role had changed completely. Instead of fighting wars, he helped prevent them. He traveled between worlds. teaching others what he had learned about cooperation and understanding. Lyrale grew up to become a diplomat, carrying on the work of building bridges between different peoples. She often told the story of how her human brother had saved her, and how that one act of kindness had changed the course of history. Years later, when Marcus was old and gray, he would sit with his grandchildren, some human, some Zephyrian, some from other species that had joined the growing alliance, and tell them about the day he heard a child crying in the ruins of war. The most important choices we make, he would say, are not about being brave or strong. They are about choosing to care for others, even when it costs us something. His name became legend, spoken with respect across 100 worlds. But Marcus knew the truth. He had not started the peace. A frightened little girl had started it when she chose to trust a stranger. He had just been lucky enough to be the stranger she trusted. The galaxy was a better place because sometimes, when it mattered most, people chose love over fear, family over species, and hope over hatred. And it all began with one simple decision: to help a child who needed help. Marcus smiled as he remembered. That day, it had been the easiest choice he had ever made, and the most important one the galaxy had ever seen. The name Marcus Chen would be remembered for generations, but he was proudest of the name Lyrale had given him on that very first day. Brother,